This is the first of 2 lectures. This one is going to be specifically working with Title 22 or community care licensing, and the next PowerPoint will be on child abuse. So I'm going to talk about all of the resources and support you need to start and maintain a relationship with licensing. So lots of just different links and information for you in order to start a great relationship with licensing if you're opening up a new center, or maintain a great relationship. I do have to have a disclaimer similar to my legal lectures that I had previous in the semester. This is not a class on licensing. I am not a representative of licensing. You yourself, legally, in order to operate a child care center, have to attend orientations. On top of that, you need to put in the hard work of working with your analyst, and then also conducting your own due diligence in auditing yourself, going through the paperwork yourself for your individual program. So I can't do that with you. I am just supporting you in your working with licensing. So licensing can be hard to work with. We've all had probably different analysts. Sometimes it feels very adversarial, like they're just looking for something to hit you on. But I would like to kind of reframe it as a positive in this class. I hear you when you talk about it. I have stories, I have mentioned them, where I felt that it was very unfair and I was targeted. But for the most part, I try to frame a relationship as they're trying to keep children safe, I'm trying to keep children safe, and having some kind of working relationship is really going to help us. Because at the end of the day, those regulations are designed to keep children healthy and safe, and that's one of our main priorities as well. So I've talked about the licensing mission statement specifically with when we are creating healthy and safe programs. And this is the literal core mission of child care licensing. So monitoring, technical assistance, and then I'd really like to focus on the establishing partnerships with providers, parents, and the child care community. That's the thing that I think they probably need to work on, is partnerships. You help me, I'll help you. And we need to start off that conversation by creating these really great working relationships with our analysts and with the child care advocates that are also on staff at licensing as well. So how do we have this working relationship? If you are a new director or you're new to the program, I think the best thing that's come out of licensing in the last couple of years, because when I started in the field, we didn't have a website, we didn't have anything online. Your papers that you had in your child's file had been Xeroxed so many times, they were barely readable. So now we have this online site. And while it can be a little bit hard to navigate, they're making strides every year. For example, right now we have videos online, which are fantastic. They are great. They will give you the introduction, and it's amazing that we have this because it used to not exist at all. There are lots of self-assessments and self-audits. I talked about it in the nutrition, that if you self-audit yourself like licensing would or the USDA would, that is a fantastic way to know what you're serving is good. And then also there's a audit that you can do from licensing that is great as far as if you're preparing because you haven't had your annual visit, or you're new and you know somebody's going to come out, or you just want to make sure everything's above ground when it comes to working with licensing. Also, it's great when you're a new director or you're an experienced director but you're new to a program, go over the personnel files with a fine-tooth comb, make sure that it's right there. That's something easy we can sometimes get hit on, and it's really just the tedious task of sitting down and going through your personnel files and making sure that for your children and for your staff you have everything that licensing would need. Then you can go ahead and give it to them. During your first site visit, or the first time an analyst comes out, come with an attitude of hyper positivity. I want to work with you, I'm ready to learn. That's typically what they want to know. I think they like being seen as the expert, and for most cases, they are experts on the health and safety of children, including supervision. So if you come at them with, I'm so glad you're here, this is fantastic, I have questions for you. In my experience, analysts have liked that and they've responded well to that. Also understand and value that you and your staff, when we see our analyst pull up in their car, and I remember one of my analysts had a little white Honda Civic, something like that. It was a little white car, and when we would see it, everybody would be like, and we had a fairly good relationship with her, but it was just the idea that licensing is here. And I remember I had two teachers that were had these administration classes, but they were teachers because I was the only management person. And when I would go on lunch, they would cover me. I didn't typically go to lunch every day. Like sometimes I would just work or I would go sit in my car, but I did leave the center. So they were there. Everything was fine as far as licensing, but I got like a panicked call. This was even before texting. A panicked call that the licensing analyst was there and please come back. So I like left my burrito and I drove back to the center as fast as I could so I could meet our analyst and relieve my teachers who were like definitely stressing. So know that your staff's going to have some stress when it comes to analysts, and you might have some stress, and that's fine. That's part of kind of what licensing is. It's so serious that we should have a little bit of anxiety when they come, because it means a lot that licensing has come out, and hopefully they're willing to work. So if you need to become licensed, so there's an in-person orientation, there's an application, and there's a licensing process for childcare centers and then for FCC homes as well. So the best thing to do is to go to the CDSS, to go to Community Care Licensing, to that website, and go to orientations. They have in-person and they have online ones. You also have to have a one-time licensing fee for any new licenses for your location. And then on top of that, you need a business license, most likely. You need the fire department to come out and give you a clearance. And then sometimes you will also need planning department approval if you are making any large structural changes to the center as well. So the best thing with being licensed is just to know that there is a long process, orientations, applications, and that the process can take a while. My daughter's school operated under a conditional license. When she first went there, I only needed a couple hours of care. So she went during their conditional license, was only 3 hours of care a day. That's all they could provide licensing wise. And then it took them another 6 months on top of that in order to get fully running. So it can be a long and somewhat tedious process, but it is worth it. And there is a kind of standard process you have to go through, and licensing should support you in that. What should you do if something happened? The child gets seriously hurt or they were unsupervised. If you had an incident with your staff, somebody was hurt, there was allegations, or something happened between staff and families, or something happened between families or with a family, you need to have an incident report. Just report. I am very much in the camp, and I believe that most community college instructors who teach child development classes, these are in my camp of, it's better to report and have a person come out and maybe it didn't warrant a report versus it needed a report. The parent calls or they find out through the news or something, and then they're mad at you because you didn't report and call them. So for example, this has totally happened years ago, but a center had a child unsupervised, I believe at a park or on a field trip, something like that. Police were involved, everybody was involved. The analyst heard about it on the news and then had to go out to the center and was like, this warrants an incident report. Like, why didn't you call us? I mean, this was years and years ago, but I feel like they might have even shut the child care center down. So them finding out through a parent, through the grapevine, through the news, worst case scenario, anything like that is going to really hurt your working relationship. So if a child's hurt, if they were unsupervised or something large happened with any part of your staff or families, then you need to do an incident report yourself. Don't try to cover it. Don't pretend it didn't happen. Don't try to handle it in-house. Tell the analyst, have them come out and deal with it through them. Okay, so what if your parents are upset? Obviously, community care licensing, that who they call as far as that has to be displayed in all of our classrooms, at our child care centers, and at our FCC homes as well. So somebody's upset. I would say use your customer service techniques, call them on the phone, all the things that I talked about when calming and soothing upset parents. But it is their right to call licensing. Don't take that sheet out of your classrooms. Don't tell them not to call. Don't try to bribe them out of calling. If they know about it, they will call if they are upset enough. If it's unreasonable, you feel, stand by your program. I remember I had a parent call because we had a rotating menu. So it was pretty cyclical, about 2.5 weeks, everything would repeat over again. She called on that. She did not like the food that we were providing. She didn't think eggs or oatmeal or cereal or any of our breakfast foods in particular made her very upset. I felt that that was an unreasonable demand. I used my customer service. I tried to tell her all menus and why it's cyclical, and this is, then showed her what our USDA says, but she called. The licensing analyst came out and was like, yeah, you use a cyclical meat. Like, she kind of basically cleared us and was like, yeah, this is not a problem. Everything you've done is above ground, above the law, above our community care licensing regulations. You might want to hear her out a little bit and provide, you know, a fresh fruit or something like that. Or I don't remember what she said. She was like, yeah, maybe you need to add an organic vegetable to the eggs, something like that. You know, and I said, financially, we cannot support organic vegetables in our breakfast at this point. I will keep it in my mind. And as our program grows and we can start to add more, I would love to start putting organic vegetables in our scrambled eggs or whatever it was. So I kind of heard what the analyst said, but she stood by me as well, and that this was fairly unreasonable demand. We were above ground as far as it came with USDA and what we had to provide. If they have a substantiated complaint, you know, if their child was left unsupervised or the personal rights of the child were violated, something like that, work with the analyst to find solutions, accept what kind of violations or how you're going to be hit by the analyst, and think with her and yourself and your program ways that you can change your program to be more compliant with these regulations. Also, take a deep breath, because every time you see that family, you might be a little bit upset for the first couple of weeks that they called you out, that you were actually hit. But you do want to reassure them that you continue to have a working relationship. You're going to greet them, you're going to say hi, and you're still going to provide excellent care to that child. So here's some more resources and references. So there is a reference tool, the Title 22 Division 12 Child Care Facility Licensing Regulations. So that's exactly what it's called. And it's a materials that are the governing authorities for that all child care facilities must follow and understand to maintain compliance and a healthy and safe environment for children in care. So that's the official kind of party line. It is a reference tool. It is quite big, but it is nice to know all of the things, all of the regulations in one place can be handy for you to have so that you always know what the specific regulation is. On top of that, obviously, if I could make that reference tool more easy to use, I would be a millionaire, because I would sell that book for $1 and everybody would buy it who's in childcare, because it's difficult to read, it's very long, it's very boring. So there are more resources for providers. And so if you go once again to the CDSS website, to their child care licensing section, they have a place called Resources for Providers. It's its own section on the website. And in there, they have laws and regulations, and they also have an evaluator's manual, which can help you understand how your analyst evaluates yourself and your program. So it's a great way so that you can see what your licensing care analyst is using as a manual to look at your program. So that kind of puts you in the eyes or the lens of the analyst. What are they looking for? Why do they have to look for it this way? And that can help you in running your program. There's also an FCC, so family child care, so in-home daycare. There's a manual for those providers as well. There's one for small family or large family. And there's also information for co-op programs. So like cooperative child care, where parents and families kind of run the center. They take turns providing care. There's a information for that, which I think is really good. We probably don't have enough co-op programs out there for stay-at-home moms or families that are maybe part-time employed. That might be an option, especially as childcare is rising. But this talks about training, the preventative health practice training that people need to have, child abuse. So the issues that are very specific to FCC, the best place to see this is in that FCC manual that's once again on the CDSS website. The Child Care Advocate Program, fantastic. They have come out to Palomar, and they have come out to lots of other community colleges as well. There's one, I think there's only one per region really, but it's a fantastic program. There are advocates, and they will come to your center, they will come to your school, they will come to your program, and they will talk to you about licensing. So these are the people that really, really, really want to help us have a working relationship. So this is a great thing to do. And they also, in the advocate program, have updates, they have quarterly information sheets, and they have self-assessments. So I think every month and then every quarter I get an email from licensing, these are the new regulations, or this is how it's been interpreted, or reminding you in May about this sunscreen, things like that that are really pertinent to licensing. They send out information. And I remember that they also, I think, sent out information about fires and fire safety because part of licensing is group homes, and so it's important that they can get that information out as well. So in conclusion, I know licensing, I've been hit with them. I still have some strong feelings about it. I still don't agree with some of the ways that I have been hit. I have also been hit when I did deserve it. That there was a safety concern. I had it blocked off, but the licensing analyst pointed out that it was a safety concern. From that point, I was able to take the violation and put it up my chain of command and go past with my program director, go to the CFO and the COO and the CEO and say, look, this has been an issue. You keep telling us there's not enough money, but now we've been hit on the safety concern on our playground. And then, surprise, surprise, we got money for our center, but it took being hit by an analyst. But in the long run, that made my program safer. Having cones and things around a safety violation tells everybody that it's there, but it doesn't actually fix it unless I get money or something from people typically who are above me who might not have that same concern. So while it can be anxiety producing, sometimes they can be an agent of change. And so we need to keep that working relationship. And just for your own sake as being a director, having the working relationship that you try for being positive can help you. So I want to reframe it as positive, knowing that there are issues, and sometimes it can feel like they're picking on us, or sometimes it can feel like we'll never keep up with all these regulations. But in the meantime, and if you really strongly feel like that, you should join an advocacy program. There are opportunities to go to Sacramento and advocate for childcare people, so consider that as an option as well. But in the meantime, in your day-to-day work as a director or manager of a center or an FCC home, please try to work with licensing, do your due diligence to know about the advocate program, know about the manual and the references, so that you are, to the best of your ability, compliant, and then work with them if you are ever not. All right, this is the first of 2 PowerPoints. There's another one specifically on the management issues of child